recipient of the Minority Business of the Year Award presented by the National Black MBA Association, and recognized as one of the top 25 women-owned businesses by the National Association of Women Business Owners. So with that, I am going to turn it over to Dr. Paula Duran.
Good morning. Thank you very much for that introduction, Donna. And let me say hello, and it's just so good to see faces. It's wonderful to be here with you today. I'd like to add my piece to say, this is such a gift to be invited into your lives this morning. I have been just like you, in the house, not really being out. I really haven't been out since March in a lot of ways because I have a pre-existing condition. But being here today and invited into your lives, I say thank you. And Donna, to your team and to Peter and the team, thank you for the opportunity and the invitation to be here today. Our topic is so relevant, loving on empty. We find ourselves in a really difficult and strange place right now. Some of you are feeling like, my gosh, my loss of control. It's gone. I don't have that sense of security that I normally would have and experience. A caregiver told me the other day, I just turned 65 and I have this sense of freedom and now I'm locked in. I can't do anything at this point. She was planning on dating, matter of fact. So some of us are feeling that experience. That sense of isolation is overwhelming for so many people. Caregivers are calling, just hearing a voice of another person is really a gift to people. And this whole thing around grieving is such an amazing experience. I lost 2 members of my family, and the traditional things of coming together and holding each other and caring for each other and serving, supporting the pain is different. Now we're separated from each other. So it's just a difficult place to be. I was so inspired by this title, Loving on Empty, that I created this tool, and it's called Loving on Empty. It's a caregiver's piece that it's inspirational in nature. And I said, it's amazing that one of the things that happens sometimes when we're in pain is that some of our greatest gifts and talents can be experienced. So that's my opening to say thank you. But I want you to know, I heard that 43 million number of caregivers, unpaid caregivers, but we also probably have an additional group of caregivers who are paid caregivers, who are going into nursing homes every day or going into centers every day that are worrying about potentially developing the disease and taking it back to their families. I wish I had the gift of opening up this moment. I know it's not possible, and us all have a pan, and we bang on it like they did in New York. And in that New York, they were saying, thank you to the unsung heroes. Thank you for everything you do. And I just want to start by saying thank you for your work, your love, your care, even though there's some moments we're loving on empty. So Donna, if there was a way we could get us some pans and some pots going, we could get some love going and sharing. But since we can't do that, we just want to say thank you. As I go through this presentation, and my part of this is such a gift, it's loving on empty. I get to talk about some of the strategies that we're using to make ourselves feel valued and approached and loved on and supported and supporting others. Donna sent the question out. I want to share my screen with you. I have a PowerPoint, and technology is a developing gift for me. There we go. That's where I wanted to start. I want to introduce you to Mom and Dad. Mom had Alzheimer's and Dad had vascular dementia. And we cared for both of them. And in that caring, they died 9 months apart. And I learned with my mom, didn't know, we knew something was wrong, but we really learned that something was wrong when she showed up in Novi, Michigan, which for those of you that know this part of the country, from Ferndale, she lived in Ferndale, it was about a 30-minute drive. And Mom in the process got lost, and someone called us to say, your mom's here. I was so pleased that she was in the hands of a loving storekeeper that allowed us to come and get her and take care of her. But that was one of the first major signs that we knew Mom had dementia. So once Mom passed, the gift I was given was to bring Dad into my home for the next 9 months. And in that loving process, I learned so much. I came to my knees to say how much I appreciated, how much I learned about being a caregiver. So I want to just tell you how I define caregiving. People define it in different ways. So as we're talking today, know that I view caregiving as an exchange of gifts and talents and love. I see that relationship being a two-way experience. You grow as a caregiver as well as the loved one receiving the gifts and talents you have. Some people call it care partners, some people call it cares, but I want you to know, whatever the label you give it and it means to you, I view caregiving as a blessing. To be able to walk that last journey or to care for someone is truly a gift to be given. And I was very appreciative, and I know that many of you are too. We had asked many of the caregivers to tell us about some of the strategies they were using for caregiving. And I think, you know, it was really funny, some of them. A bunch of them came over and said, strategies, what's a strategy? All I'm doing is taking care of my loved one. I'm working one day at a time. I'm going 1 minute at a time. And I want you to know, a lot of you said that and know you experienced that, but I want you to know you're doing things that fit into strategies, but you just don't call them strategies. So what I'd like to ask you, if you would give me a sense of what do you believe to be the #1 caregiving strategy that you use or others use in supporting loved ones living with various kinds of illnesses. Just kind of send us some notes real quick. And let me see if I can read some of them off as you're coming through. What is the #1 strategy you believe we as caregivers utilize in supporting our loved ones? Suzanne said, what we're doing is we're slowing down. Charlene said, we're praying. And I want you to know, you always have to, I believe, a much higher power. Karen, hi Karen, patience. Loving on Empty is awesome title, you're right. Some of us said, we're just going with the flow. Because one of the things that happens sometimes is we get these plans in place on how we're gonna do all this stuff, and then our loved one doesn't, quote unquote, cooperate with our plan. Well, we need plans, but they have to be flexible. Kindness, mindfulness. Kathy said she's making sure that her husband feels safe, just feels safe. Crystal said she's honoring the person's abilities as much as possible, allowing them to continue to contribute. Lisa said she's listening more than probably than we have in the past. Somebody said, I hired outside help. Let me echo that for you. Sometimes we feel like we're supposed to do all of it ourselves, but it is really important that as you walk this journey with a loved one, that you realize that I'm getting help. I may need help. Well, let me tell you one of the things that I think that in spite of all the challenges, we make a difference. We add value. We're showing love and gifts and talents. But I think the #1 strategy for caregivers is taking care of you. It is so essential that you care for you. There's so many ways that we're not doing that. One caregiver I spoke to this week, she said she took her mom to the doctor and ended up in the hospital herself. Why is that? Because so many of us make sure our loved one gets to the doctor, but we're not taking care of ourselves. Her blood pressure was so high, her mom's doctor had her admitted to the hospital. And there's some number out there, like 67% of caregivers don't even honor their own doctor's appointments. You have to ask yourself, am I in that number? Because it is so important that you care for you first. And there's so many things that potentially burn out, especially now, during this time when we're so isolated. And I tell people, if you're finding that you're getting a little more angry, you're a little more angry than normal, losing more interest, increasing health problems. So here's a checklist. I want you to be doing this. No, Paula, that's not me. No, that's, oh, yes, that's me. Short-tempered, pain, crying. These are some signs that you might need to slow down enough and take care of the most important person first. And people's, please, you are essential to the success of your loved one. So you have to take care of you. So let me talk about who you are for a moment before I go into some of the other strategies. You are a whole person. And I don't know if you feel like a whole person. I know when I was taking care of my mom and dad, I didn't always feel like a whole person. I felt like I was a caregiver. But I also knew that in order for me to be an effective caregiver, the most effective caregiver. I had to figure out how to balance out my whole person. As someone said, I prayed a lot. I journaled. I meditated on that spiritual component of who I am. And those are some of the things you told us you were doing. On the social component, it was tough on the social component because I really couldn't get out. Well, as we talked through this on some of the strategies you sent us, you came up with some things. Technology has allowed us to do some things that none of us ever imagined we would be able to do. And in the process, you said you were walking, you were praying, you were finding ways to laugh out loud, which allowed you to just release the stress. Some of you were working on patients. In addition, I think some things we also may need to do is to address the stuff that's in our head. I don't know about you. Yes, I do. I know about you because you're just like me. There's some things that get in my mind and they just stay there and they go around and around. And I lay down and I said, oh, I'm going to get some sleep, but I can't because that thing is still going around and around in my head. We have to learn how to turn that off and say, this day I did the best job I could do. And it was wonderful. It wasn't perfect because no one achieves perfect. And learn to get rid of that old-fashioned message that's in our heads. So you are a whole person, mentally, social, physically, personally, and spiritual. And you matter. As I talk about you matter, I talked to a caregiver this past week, and he says, well, I really don't matter because the only thing that matters is making sure my mother is fine. And I said, but what happens if you get sick? And he slowed down and says, well, I said, what's your backup plan? And most of our caregivers don't have a backup plan. So he said, okay, I'm willing to consider that some things I have to do for me. I also encouraged him to figure out what his stress signs were. Each of us has a stimulus for stress. We've got some triggers, but learning those triggers is absolutely essential and important as we move forward. So we invited him to be more realistic. I don't know about you, but one of the things that I would do from time to time is I would set a schedule that mom needed her bath at 8 and breakfast was at 9. And at 11, I was going to wash clothes. By 12, we would prepare lunch. And you know what I'm going. And by 1 o'clock, we would do this. By 3 o'clock, we would do this. Oh, and by bedtime, she'd be perfect. She'd be sitting in her chair, already had a bath, and ready for bed. Please know, one morning, I woke up ready for my 8 o'clock workout with my mother and doing this work together. And she decided she didn't want to get up till 11. I want you to know it threw me the first time it happened. I said, but Ma, and I realized I had a schedule, but my schedule didn't match my mother. And my challenge, and it was to learn how to make things happen with her on her schedule, have a plan, but also be clear. And so a healthy caregiver, as my slide says, provides healthy care. And you could stay healthy. I ask people, but one of the things I also learned when we think about that circle, I was so focused on caring, once they passed, I didn't even remember what it was I liked doing anymore. Because I had gotten so focused that I lost sight of the things that I really enjoy. And so what I did is had to redefine myself as we went forward. So some suggestions as we move through this before we go to all of the great ideas you gave us. Learn your stress signs. For me, I get this feeling in my stomach and I start to feel a little wheezy, and that's my sign. But I had to bring realism into the work we were doing. We had to also deal with hope and take little bitty breaks, very mindful breaks, take lots of breaks, and be thankful. So you gave us a list of strategies, and I want to walk through some of the strategies that you provided us. And thank you for taking the time to do that. And I put them in the categories that we use in our training program. And I want to walk through each of them. So I'll just list them. Help me feel safe. Communicate and engage. Help me remember. Comfort me with touch. I hear and feel your energy. And self-management. For a bit, I'd like to just walk through through some of these. Help me feel safe. The gifts that you gave us and some of the ideas you gave us around help me feel safe is that a lot of times our loved ones are feeling insecure, especially at this time and moment in history. And in the process of that, many of you are protecting the home. I have this image of us kind of being the person there making sure the germs don't get in. One lady said she was cleaning so much that her hands were raw because she was washing and cleaning and washing and cleaning and protecting the home from any disease or germs, not allowing viruses to get in. Under also help me feel safe in this whole concept of security, you were limiting the number of people that were coming in. And in limiting the number of people coming into your home, some people got into difficulty with their families. Now we have a session we do on crazy family. That's a whole different issue. We won't deal with that one today, but they had to help their family understand that the loved one was vulnerable to disease, as well as the caregiver who was also older in that grouping that made them vulnerable. You're staying home as much as possible. These are all care strategies. You're staying home. And when you go out, it's like to the supermarket, you have your gloves on, you have got your mask on, you're doing all the things necessary to protect yourself and your loved one that you don't take disease back into the house. You also told us that you're looking at doing extreme caution and paying very close attention to what's causing stress in your loved one. One of the things that, and this one for me, what happened with me and my mom is that I found that at nighttime, she became very scared, very vulnerable, feeling very exposed. So what I found is that I said, let's do the normal things. I made sure in her bedroom there was nothing hanging around that could confuse her and make her wonder if it was someone in her room to harm her. I covered up the mirror in her room so if she saw something, she wouldn't get afraid of it. I also did the things like a little night light in her bathroom that would allow some light into the bedroom. All of the little things that we did. I also protected her from television. And so a story that a friend of mine gave me just recently, she said what she did is that they were watching TV, her and her mom were watching TV one night. And she said that they were watching like cops and robbers and lots of things on the street. And so the next morning, which was Sunday, she went to church with her mom. And her mom told the preacher, the pastor, that her daughter had all these men over the house last night, and they were shooting and they were killing. Pastor was kind and he knew mom had dementia. The connection to this of make me feel safe, control what they watch on TV too. Because in controlling that, you can stop the energy, the spirits that get into their minds and into their hearts that they can't throw off anymore. So help me feel safe was the first category, was the second category. And I'm going to stop for 1 second and say, if you have any questions on that, please feel free. But the first 3 people that send me a note to tell me what the first 2 care strategies are, I will provide for you and put in the mail, Loving on Empty. And you need to provide some information. We're going to send you Loving on Empty. What were the first 2 caregiving strategies that you provided? And Donna will capture that for me. So let me continue as you're doing that. The next care strategy is communication, is to communicate and engage. We have come to learn that for us as human beings, we have a need to communicate and be connected with others. I think it's just like breathing. It's allowing ourselves to stay connected to the human parts of people. And many of the things that you told us you were doing right now, though, even those of you who say, I'm just doing it day to day, I want to reinforce to you, you said we're doing FaceTime, we're doing Zoom online with families. One caregiver said, well, every Friday I have a glass of wine with 5 of my girlfriends on Zoom. Good for you. If that's working for you, make it happen, because that's that social component, that's that personal component, and I'm not sure where the wine fits, but it's all part of that component. So please continue doing those things. So you're using technology. One caregiver indicated that what she does is they have a Friday afternoon, depending on the weather, on the back porch visit with the family. So the family comes in the yard, everybody gets a chair in the yard, they're socially distant with their mask, and the loved one is on the porch, and they get to talk to each other on the porch in social distance. You're doing things to help yourself. Yes, that is a care strategy. It's caring for you and it's caring for your loved one. And it's keeping them engaged. Daily phone calls. Many of you came and talked about the beauty of just seeing each other. I want all of your pictures up here. It's just a gift to see people outside of myself. You're providing choices. I heard many of you saying we're continuing to provide choices, helping our loved one to stay engaged as much as possible. Activities, lots of activities, booklets, puzzles, all kinds of things people are doing. So help me feel safe, communicate and engage, and keeping the loved ones engaged as much as possible. And what we've learned is that if you do these things, you're not only blessing and supporting your loved one, you're helping yourself at the same time. Because there's something special when you see in the eyes of your loved one that you made a difference. It is such a gift to be given that moment. So we've covered 3 caregiver strategies thus far. This next one is I hear and feel your energy, followed by self-management. I hear and feel your energy is powerful. It's so important because it's one of those things that it allows us, for example, when have you ever had a friend that you like, but you're not, but you didn't really like being around them, but you like them? Because every time you got with them, they had something negative to say. And it's like they're always pulling from your energy. It's almost like you got zapped every time you saw them. They sponged your energy. That happens with us, our loved ones. They hear and feel our energy. And there's some people who their voices are music. It's like they talk and you can hear the music in their voice. And what a beautiful gift when you meet people like that. And engaging your loved one with that piece of information that my voice can be music to their spirit. It's one of the things that is so important, is providing that music to your spirit versus someone who talks like this. I'm not even gonna use words. They talk like this and you're hard all the time. Well, let your voice be music. Also, in doing that, the power of your voice, the power of patience are 2 others, and your attitude. People, I remember all these little words, attitude makes altitude and all these other kinds of things. The attitude with which you approach your work. If your attitude is such that I believe this is going to be a good day. One of the things I would do when I woke up every morning and caring for my mother and father, I would say, today is Wednesday. Thank you, God, for allowing me to know today is Wednesday. And some of you might say, why is that important? My mom and dad didn't remember that it was Wednesday. I remembered that it was Wednesday. And I was so thankful that I knew that it was Wednesday that I thus proceeded every day by saying, thank you, I know today is Wednesday. I appreciate the gift of Wednesday. So again, to my caregivers out there, we've covered a number of, Donna, I want us to capture the next 3 people that can come up with the names and titles of any of the care strategies we've used so far, and we will provide them with our Loving on Empty tool. The Help Me Remember is another one that we did before we go to this next one, I skipped one, so bear with me. It's Help Me Remember. Help Me Remember is one of the things that I found so wonderful in supporting my parents, is helping them to remember the love that they might have forgotten, to reconnect to their own past through pictures, through music. And music is so absolutely powerful. Music has the ability to make you remember things. How many remember your first love? I mean, that very first love that just made you excited. So in the process of that, but how many remember the music that was associated with that first breakup? Music is the gift that's given that connects to your emotions. And in connecting to your emotions, it's something you could do. And I had many caregivers say, I have a soul train day at my house. I'm like, a soul train day at your house? What is that? Well, I pull up the music that my mom really loved. And in doing that, I then will spend the day just playing music. And so it's a gift to share. And one of the things I tell young people, if they're supporting their loved ones, you need to use the music that they love. The music that you love may not work with them. So use the music that they love. So we are the Help Me Remember, and another one, and I wish I could go backwards, but I'm sorry, I don't know how to, is to comfort me with touch. Touch is probably the most wonderful gift that anybody can be given. In our training, we bring in a masseuse, and we teach 3 touch techniques to our caregivers. And they're very simple. We're not trying to certify them. We teach them very simple touch. Very simple touch on their hands, very simple touch on their shoulders, just doing very simple touch. And it's important because in order for you to be successfully touch them with the oils and the smells that we provide, you have to relax enough yourself to do that. So Comfort Me with Touch is powerful. We have a journal that we use, and in the journal I had for my mom, because when people came to visit her, they didn't know what to do. Sometimes they sat there playing on their phone, or they sat there just uncomfortable. What we did was we told them about her journal. And in her journal under Comfort Me with Touch, it says, please massage my scalp. Well, it empowered the person who was visiting to do something. Mom had to oil his hair going at some point, but that was okay. Because if you actually engaged her to oil her scalp, I don't know if you've ever seen a cat when they're satisfied, how they go through this motion of, you know what I mean. Mom was so excited with that you knew that you had given her a gift. So being thankful that you had given her a gift, you did it and you engaged her, you were pleased that you did it too. So some of the caregivers are now doing spa days. Roger, who's one of the folks who went through one of our training programs, says he does every Sunday a spa day. And he does the nails with his mom and their toes, and she touches her hair, and they have that connection going, knowing that that is a powerful gift to use. So that's back to the Comfort Me with Touch. One thing I missed is that I encourage you to have a song in your spirit. What does that mean? Well, let me do this. Everybody who's listening to me, smile. I mean, just smile. It's like, she crazy. Just smile. Doesn't that feel good? All you did was smile. And so I tell people underneath my mask, I say, I'm smiling at you, because I want people to know that you can keep a song and a smile in your spirit. And in keeping a song and a smile in your spirit, you could be humming it. I don't know if you've ever done this. Start humming a song, and then the person you were helping and supporting and loving, you find that they kind of got that same energy and song going too. Please know, they follow your lead. It connects to their heart. It connects to their spirit. So we have, let me review the strategies that we talked about so far. We've talked about self-care as the #1 priority, because that's absolutely necessary, that you are focused on caring for yourself. We talked about communication and engagement and all the many things you're doing to support the loved one. We talked about Help Me Remember, which is also another gift. Comfort Me with Touch. I Hear and Feel Your Energy are all care strategies that you told me about that you were doing. A piece that I want to share with you, though, is a story that I talked to a gentleman who was caring for his wife. And he was so angry. He was so angry at his daughter. He had one daughter. And he said, she won't help me. I said, what do you mean she won't help you? She won't do anything for her mother. I'm like, okay. Now in my mind, I'm thinking, if you're talking to me like that, I probably wouldn't help you either, but that's a whole nother conversation. So what she did, I said, well, did you ask her? He said, no. I said, she should know. She should know I need help. And I said, you know what? I happen to agree with you. She probably should know, but why don't you ask her? So what he did is he asked her for help. And she said, all right, I'll give you an hour a day. An hour a day. I don't know what your first reaction was to that. I know what mine was. Let me ask you a question. Did he accept her hour a day? Send me a note. Tell me quickly. Did he accept her help? Someone, lots of no's popping up. There's a yes. I mean, almost everybody has said no. It's all popping in. Well, he said no. And I said, why did you say no? He said, because she should give me more time than that. But one of the things we've learned in this process is that there are times the other person doesn't really know what to do either in terms of caregiving. I said, do me a favor. Go back and tell her yes. So he fought with it because he was struggling with the ego thing. I said, this is not about you. This is about your wife and ensuring that she's getting cared for properly. He went back, accepted that hour, and I said, what I want you to do during your hour, what do you like doing? He says, I like sitting on the back porch. I said, during your hour, don't go in there trying to get in the way, because you know nobody can do it like you, because we do it the way we think it's supposed to be done. I said, go sit on the back porch and just watch the grass grow. He came back and said, that was wonderful. I said, tell your daughter. He told the daughter, and do you know what she did? She said, Dad, I can do a half a day. I can come over half a day a week. Every day I can come by for a half a day. She wanted to be included, didn't know how to be included. She wanted to feel valued, but didn't feel valued because Dad was so angry. Dad was so angry with the situation that he wasn't dealing with his full set of issues. So I said, what you need now is you need to go talk to someone, because caregivers need to receive sometimes professional help. And it's important, if someone shared with me, don't be too quick to judge. I happen to agree. His daughter might have been busy. Well, this situation, it wasn't that she was busy, she just didn't know how to help, because we got together as a family. So thank you for that we should not judge the daughter, because some people don't have the time, their lives are full already, and they may need to hire outside help themselves. So yes, you are correct. So I'd like to also share with you another family story before we go into the self-management piece. There was a family that came to see us. It was 5 children, and they were angry at their mother. And if you have supported someone with dementia, you know there's a time and place where they become very angry. Sometimes, and it depends on the person, not generalizing. They become very angry and was striking out, and mom was cursing for the first time. And the kids were just very, very, very uncomfortable. They didn't know what to do. So they stayed away from mom. As a way of managing her being angry with them, they all stayed away, which was probably the worst thing they could have done, but they didn't know what else to do. And mom was striking out, but mom was trying to tell them something. And so we worked together to see what might mom be trying to tell us, but also helping them to deal with mom has a brain disease, and the brain disease is causing her to behave differently. So it's so important. So once the kids gain a real appreciation that mom herself was transitioning, that her brain was being damaged by the disease, and so the kids decided that they then would try, because then they decided that this is our mother, and they loved her, but they just didn't know what to do. So they began to engage mom. Someone sent us a note that I think it's really not good. It's not always the quantity of time, it's the quality of time. Thank you, Lisa, for that. You're absolutely correct. I'm sorry, Ms. Little. Not the quantity of time, but the quality of time. Because you can spend a lot of time with someone and be angry the whole time, or you can spend a lot of time with someone and not really connecting. But it's the quality of time to do that, because some family members are just not equipped. We have a tool that we use at assessing caregiver behaviors. There's some people that are caring for someone that might be better off hiring someone, because it may not be their gift, because caregiving to me is a gift, and it's huge. And the primary caregiver needs to also give up some control to receive help. because as I said before, we know we're doing a good job in our mind and no one can do it like us, but they don't have to do it like us. They need to do it the way they're doing it in order for people to get some help and say thank you. So let's do the last one of self-management. This is one that I really had to learn to be in the moment, learn to be simply present. And that's something, that mindfulness of being present and not always worried about what's going to happen next, always worried about what we didn't do right, but simply being present. And it's important that we do that. And I want to go to a note that was just sent, and I'll go back to this one. Susan said, my mother's upset with me a lot, accusing me of things when it's not my fault. I don't know when she is starting to have dementia or not, and we're having a tough time. Susan, many people on this phone, on this visit today, would say they absolutely understand of being accused. We have been accused of stealing. We've been accused of making them be prisoners at home. We've been accused of poisoning them with our medication. We've been accused of affairs, especially if there's a husband and wife in the house, affairs. Please know let us tell you, don't take that personal. But someone said, Paul, you don't just simply say don't take it personal. You have to learn about the disease that you're dealing with. And as you learn about the disease you're dealing with, you'll come to appreciate that that's another moment in their journey on that dementia journey. And so you need to talk, you might talk to somebody because it is tough. Taking it personal, because the first time my mother said I was stealing, I thought, oh my God, I'm stealing. I'm doing everything I can to take care of you, and you accusing me of stealing, and you don't have any money anyway? Well, once I realized it wasn't about me, and she wasn't accusing me, it was something in her and the disease process that was causing her to behave that way. And what some of us do is we give them bank statements, trying to make sure they understand. And it's funny, she has a brain disease, and I'm being logical and bringing her bank statements. See, your money's still in there. And so the issue is that didn't work. It was coming to understand what was underneath the behavior, not just the behavior itself, because what we learn is the brain is shrinking and they're scared, and we got to love them. We got to love them, love on them. We got to take care of them and keep them engaged and involved all the time, as much as possible. Adrian, thank you for that. She sent Susan a note to say it's about the disease. It's all about the disease. And here's another one, that studies show caregivers who care for folks living with dementia suffer a form of dementia because of our breathing changes and stress. That might be true. I don't know that necessarily, but I will honor what you said, and Peter can correct me as the specialist on this panel when it comes to dementia. So here's another one. Someone said QTIP, quit taking it personal. That's a good tip. That's a very good tip. The challenge is, in order for me not to take it personal, I have to understand more, get more of me out of the way, and continue to engage the loved one. And it's about, that exchange of love I told you about? It's that exchange of learning and loving and giving. I was telling you, one of the things that happened for me and my mother, I found out that ultimately she was just afraid to go to sleep. So I would sit at her bedside and I would just say, Mom, here. And every night she'd say, do you have enough cover? I said, yes, ma'am, I have enough cover. That was her way of loving me. And my way of loving her was just sitting there with her until she fell asleep. And when she fell asleep, I tipped out. But I came to know what she needed from me and was willing to give it. Because my mother thought I lived there with her. I didn't. I just stayed there long enough for her to fall asleep. There's a money management question coming up. I'd like you to know Peter's going to address all of those money questions that are coming up. It's a good one too. Speaking of money, if it's a spouse, when is it time to require 2 signatures on a check? Peter can address that, and we'll leave that for him for his part of the presentation. And Karen, thank you for saying just love through the process. You've got to love through the process. And so finishing up my list on self-management, which is the last one, simply be present. Encouragement is so important for your spirit. Encouragement is so important for their spirit. I need you, some people are meditating. You told me that you were meditating. My mother's favorite line for me growing up was, you need to stop and let the wind blow through your brain. And I used to always say, Mom, I sound like an airhead. But then when I realized what she was trying to say to me, she was saying, you need to smell the flowers. You need to slow down. You need to just be present in life and enjoy it. It's not the destination. It's the process in the midst of the destination that's important. Now, taking deep breaths and to remove yourself sometimes when the situation is escalating. You don't have to sit there. One time, a mother, she started crying. You know, and some of you have gone through this. When they just start crying and there's nothing you can do, it's not the medication didn't work, the setting was calm, the room was comfortable, but they just started crying. And you feel so helpless in the process of their crying. And you don't want to sit there and start crying yourself necessarily. So I had to exit. I exited. I went in the hallway and I prayed. I said, give me strength. Give me the words to say. Give me the right touch. Even if I have to just silently be in the midst. And I would go back in the room and move forward. And so let me finish up with a piece that I have said. Let me say how important you are. Let me say how valued you are. You're not alone. There's a whole community of caregivers out here that are looking to offer support. Cling to your faith. I don't care what your faith is. Cling to your faith is essential. And live a life of gratitude. And I'd like to show you, let me just say this top item. You can read it. What worked yesterday may not work today. Don't expect everything to work all the time. Be honest with yourself. Be kind. And this is who UDC is. But I wanted to share one of those special moments that I had with my mother. It only takes a few minutes because I said, you have gifts that you receive as a result of caring for your loved one. No one has that but you. Let me share this moment of gift with you. And meanwhile, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. It's been a gift and a blessing to be part of your life today.
Thank you so much.
Differently in terms of timing, depending on the person. The obvious invitation for everyone was that she went out to know thy mom and she got lost.
Oh, I can't hear the video.
Can you turn it up? There's no sound.
When you do the shared screen, you have to click the share the video sound. So you may have to reshare your screen.
Paula?
Paula, your video isn't working with sound.
And now we can't hear you because you're muted.
We'll stop it, Donna, and if we can fix it later, maybe we have a minute, we can show it.
All right, perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Paula, for all of your insight. There are such good positive comments coming on our chat. One thing I wanted to address early on, Adrian said, I love all the information, but I can't help but feeling a deep sense of sadness. And I think as a caregiver, that holds true to many caregivers out there, including probably everyone that is on this call. And I thought that was an interesting statement that was said. All right, so next up, we are gonna head on, and I have the pleasure of introducing my boss, Dr. Peter Lichtenberg. He has worked as a clinical geropsychologist, researcher, program director, and national leader in gerontology for over 34 years. He is the director of the Institute of Gerontology since 1999, leading it to record levels of funding and community engagement and winning more than a dozen awards for his services to older adults. He has significantly contributed in the area of financial exploitation, Alzheimer's disease, and late life depression. Recently, he was awarded the Specialty Award in Gerontology from the American Board of Professional Psychology and was elected president of the Gerontological Society of America this year. Please give a warm welcome to Dr. Peter Lichtenberg.
Thank you so much, Donna. Can you hear me okay?
Mm-hmm.
Great. First, I want to thank Paula. What a phenomenal presentation that was. I sort of like to say, I discovered Paula, but she discovered me. And she told me about her work and what she'd been through as a caregiver. And I thought that this is such a unique and incredibly powerful story that she needed to share it with all the rest of us. And she's done an amazing job. So thank you for setting the stage with that. And it's a shame we aren't together, because then we could have some networking. Everybody was sharing so many things with each other and ideas and comfort and so forth. If we were together, we'd have our 30-minute networking time, and that would be just awesome. But I'm so thrilled that we are all here. And I want you to know that Donna McDonald, who does such a phenomenal job with her community outreach, has been wanting to do this conference for a while, and she's the vision behind making it come to light. So thank you, Donna, again, for all you do. I'm going to take us in a little different arena. This is sort of a little specialty area of caregiving, but it turns out that a lot of people, this becomes a huge deal. And it's about the financial management of aspects of caregiving. I'm going to give you a little primer on cognitive aging, challenges and needs for caregivers in this regard. And we have some trainings and some resources that we want to share with you, as well as our SAFE program, which now has one-on-one remote financial coaching for caregivers. So that's the journey we're going to go on. Let's take a look at cognitive aging. You know, whenever we offer a program on how does cognition change with aging and the aging brain, we get huge numbers of people, because people are concerned about this. While we've done a great job of making people aware of Alzheimer's disease in the country, there's a lot of fear that has gone with it too. And people are more afraid, except for cancer, they're more afraid of Alzheimer's disease than almost any other chronic condition. Well, it turns out in classic gerontology, cognitive aging, there are two types of intelligence to think about: crystallized and fluid. And crystallized intelligence becomes so important because this is the person-centered part of us. This is the context from which we age. As we age throughout the lifespan, we acquire expertise. Think of vocabulary as an area of expertise. Think of words that you learned and are learning still. You don't have to forget certain words to learn new words. You got room to grow. And indeed, that's what happens with crystallized intelligence across the lifespan. You know why older workers are so important in companies that really are engaged in cognitive tasks? Because of the expertise that they have. Despite the fact that they're slower in reaction time and so forth, they're often much more efficient than younger employees because they've built up all this expertise. And so that's one part of crystallized intelligence that really doesn't change until very, very late in the lifespan, but it builds throughout the lifespan. What we've learned about mostly with cognitive aging, and what you probably know, is fluid intelligence. Let's say memory for new information. I'll read you a story. How many bits of information can you tell me? Or I'll read you a set of words. How many can you tell me? And if we were to look at it from 20 to 40 to 60, 80-year-olds, it's a straight line downhill You peak at 20, and that's it. And that doesn't make any sense at all, of course, because education is a big part of that. And we'll see the curves here in a minute. But the other thing with fluid intelligence is new problem solving and planning. And caregiving is often problem solving, isn't it? And so with fluid intelligence, it may take us a little bit longer with new problems to solve them. We may not generate as many solutions, and that's where support comes in. So we have these crystallized and fluid intelligence. This is what fluid intelligence looks like. This is episodic memory. And these are group data, and you can see age on the bottom there, and you can see that really there are very modest changes across the lifespan until people get into their late 70s, into their 80s, and then there's a little bit more. But it's important to remember that there are huge individual differences. These are people who were originally in their 70s and they were followed for 7 years. So by the time they were done, they were somewhere between 77 and 86. And a good 15% of them didn't change at all. Their memory scores were just as good 7 years later. And we all know people like this. Their memory is as good in their 90s as somebody in their 50s. We know people like this. They are there. That's what we talk about with aging successfully. And we're all kind of astounded by it, but it's there, and it's not a minimal group. So that's important to remember, individual differences. The middle group is much more like the group average, and indeed they account for 2/3 or 70%, and that is minor decliners. These are all people that were aging normally. And that bottom group then is the major decliners. For some reason, we don't understand. Their memory changed significantly more than other folks, and yet they did not have dementia, not even MCI. Okay, let's tie this into money. We know about cognitive aging, crystallized and fluid intelligence. What happens with money? So given cognitive aging, why do 95% of older adults manage debt, pay bills, maintain good credit just as well as 50-year-olds? And the answer is crystallized intelligence. But there's a caveat in the commas, in the parentheses, for those who have been managing their finances for years. If in caregiving, a lot of times, it becomes a fluid intelligence test. My mom had to take over the finances and getting things ready for the accountant, paying all the bills when my dad started to become demented. And honestly, it kind of freaked her out. This hugely intelligent woman who was so incredibly competent in all areas of life, a great gardener, a wonderful cook. I've read more than anybody that I know, listened to music. But when it came to the finances, she was freaked out. This was a fluid intelligence test for her. It was brand new. How do you organize things? How do you get it together? And it was stressful. So that happens a lot in caregiving. Now, here's the scary part of the financial story. This ties into caregiving as well. This is pretty new data, but it's pretty powerful. It's been replicated as well with a couple other studies. Health and Retirement Study, the largest population-based study of older adults 55 and over in the country, retests everybody, re-interviews them every 2 years, and has a phone cognitive screen that they use. Well, in that phone cognitive screen, if your memory declined by 10 to 15%, frighteningly, your wealth declined by 15 to 18%. So this is a 30,000-foot level. The biggest thing about that was almost 2/3 of people really had no idea that their memory was declining or hadn't done anything about it. They hadn't seen a provider and hadn't really had any known problems with it. So here's wealth loss, and yet people don't know what's happening. Well, so let's tie all this into caregiving now. Donna, you'll love to see this new number. 43 million was the old one. In 5 years, we see almost 10 million more caregivers. And that bottom number is what we call heavy caregiving. People who are really providing care to somebody who has a functional need. They can no longer take care of either their basic or advanced activities of daily living. Huge numbers of people. And lots of men now. 39% men, 61% women. When I started my career, this was about 85-15. Men as spouses have always been caregivers, but now we're seeing a lot more men, adult children. 45% had at least one financial impact from caregiving, and 61% had some impact on their work. Now, 1 in 4 request information about how to get financial help for their care recipient in this questionnaire, and even more wanted help in managing finances. 58% answered that they could use this kind of support. But where do you look for it? It really hasn't been around very much. 35% were tracking their recipients' finances. And that goes to the question about the checkbook and how do we help manage this? What do we do about that checkbook? And we'll talk more about that. Well, we decided to, we got a small grant. And what we did with that grant was we got some focus group members of caregivers from a variety of backgrounds. And we met with them. I think we had 4 different groups. And a quarter of them told us the way they discovered about their parents' dementia or their spouses was that they started to become scammed or started not to pay their bills, that financial piece of everything. And so we thought, you know, there's nowhere to go. We're starting to do this for professionals, give them tools on financial decision making. Let's build out trainings for caregivers. And so this website, olderadultnestegg.com, is for you. And we'll go through how you use the website in a little bit. But I love these words, I think were Cheryl's, our colleague: learn, support, and protect. I love that. I think that's right. We want to make sure that we learn. So there's the family and friends button. You click on that. Please note, this website and its resources are no charge to you at all. Our funders have been very generous with us, so we're able to do that. When you click on it, you can either go to the online learning or the caregiver resources. So there's a lot of different helpful resources on our site. Today, I'm going to talk about our online learning. There it is, our free online learning. You can see it on the left-hand side, the 4 areas that we give some training on. And this is the kind of training that we do. We work with Bill Solomonson. Bill's at Oakland University. He's an expert on e-learning. How do people learn remotely, virtually? Now it's a big deal, right? He's probably in demand by everybody because he knows how to do it. My wife, Susan, just invented a term for me. She said, Peter, you tend to speak in quarter speak. You think everybody knows what you're talking about, but you're way down here because your mind has gone off and nobody has any idea what you're talking about. And it's true. But thank God Bill doesn't speak in quarter speak at all. These are beautiful online training modules. And they build on one another, very clear. And they're self-paced. So holding difficult conversations about money. Common mistakes, why they're difficult, what does it mean to have a crucial conversation, conversation dangers, and the learning conversation. Let's take a bigger look at this. I just had a call yesterday about this from a caregiver. How can I talk to my mother who's starting to become demented and not manage her money well? Okay, so the first thing we have to make sure of is that the conversation is going to be a safe one. Okay, if we see silence or anger, we know that the person that we're talking to is not feeling safe. Okay, those are the two signs. So we need to understand that we have to have a very careful kind of learning conversation so that we don't damage the relationship, we don't have them cut off communication and deny the problem. Older people often live by these things. You know, one of them is that most people consider their finances private. And talking about finances, interestingly enough, is often taboo in our society. It's gotten more taboo over the years. You know, it used to be sex. Now older people can talk about their sex life. It's not that taboo, but talking about money is taboo. Go figure. They want to control their own finances. You know, some gerontologists thought, hey, you know, as people get older, they're really more interested in secondary control. That is designating who would be in control as opposed to primary control, and it turned out they were wrong. People want autonomy throughout their life. Parents worry about disclosing finances with their children, or as one woman told me, we always ask in our workshops when I talk about financial decision-making exploitation, how many of you talk to your parents about their money? And you know, about 20% have beautiful families and they all talk to each other, they share. We want to join those families. The rest of us, 80% say, you know, Peter, if I told my children that I had money, I'd have problems. They'd feel entitled to it. And so that's a real issue, entitlement. And so we have to be understanding about that. And over a third of adult children have no idea where their parents' financial resources are even kept. Something happened to their parents, they wouldn't have any clue where to look for information. Why are these conversations so difficult? They hit the core of who we are. Am I a good person? Am I competent? Am I respected? Both for the older adult and for the caregiver. Some of the other modules that I just want to share with you briefly are detecting early cognitive impairment. I showed you that slide about memory loss and wealth loss. We're actually doing a study now where we're looking at people's checking accounts for 12 months. For those who are worried that they might have some memory loss or who have mild cognitive impairment, we call it the wallet study. Because detecting early cognitive impairment is not easy. It's very insidious. It's often invisible. And so we give 4 ways to detect early cognitive impairment, and actually caregivers can use 3 of those ways. We had somebody talking in the chat box about her mother's anger at her as the first symptom. Just want to remind people that for dementia, there are 3 areas that we have to always look at. It's not just about cognition, not just about memory. Personality changes, that kind of irritability, suspiciousness is another area that we look at, or apathy or depression. And the 3rd area is function, and financial mismanagement is one, early one, medications and driving are others. We have a module on detecting financial mismanagement. What are the warning signs? How can you protect older adults? There are a lot more ways now to work with the banks to either not let certain amounts of money go or have warning systems come. In terms of having that conversation about when it's time for someone to not have access to the checkbook, or to set up a different account that has only very little bits of money in it. Those are a lot of strategies that can be used as well. And then very importantly, managing someone else's money. And I say this for all the adult children out there who are managing their parents' money now as caregivers, say if there's dementia or frailty. It's very important not to conflate your finances with your parents. And yet it takes work to keep everything separate and to keep it documented what you're actually spending. But this is where families start to have a lot of trouble down the road in terms of managing someone's money. What is a fiduciary? What are the types? What are the rules for fiduciaries, etc.? So we have a lot of good information there. You can see the power of attorney, court-appointed conservators, and Social Security representative payees. Now we have a new family and friends questionnaire that just launched, and it checks how vulnerable you think your older loved one is. So now you go on the Family and Friends website and you'll see this, the Family and Friends questionnaire. You can click on it and you can fill it out. You can also complete a brief training that'll explain it to you, which we recommend you do. Then you can fill it out and you can print it out and download the report that'll be generated. Here's an example of what it will look like. And you can take it to the doctor. You can take it to the attorney. You can take it to the bank and say, here's what I'm concerned about. And this is, this questionnaire kind of indicates, A, I'm concerned about decision-making. B, I'm also concerned about financial vulnerability. So I really encourage you to use the resources that we have and those that are pertinent to you. We have a lot of great resources on the website. Look at this, we have helpful organizations, downloadable information from us. We've got more than just the training modules. We've also done household finances, Social Security and VA fiduciaries. And then we have these fraud alerts. So we have a lot. And then we have a wonderful newsletter, Community Connections, for caregivers that Cheryl and Catherine Blasio head up and edit, and it's terrific. So you can sign up for that. You can hear stories from other caregivers, learn about events, and get some warnings. Finally, with the SAFE program, Successful Aging Through Financial Empowerment, our goals are to help victims recover financial footing, assist caregivers in the proper financial management of their charges. So we have two main goals. We help older adults who've been victims of scam or identity theft, and we help caregivers in all kinds of ways and provide education. And really, we're working so hard on enhancing caregiver education, on managing the finances of people they're in charge with. All services are virtual, so we'll do webinars with Latoya Hall, our social worker, is our financial coach. We'll do one-on-one Zoom or phone coaching. And really quickly, a daughter had a legal guardianship over her mother after a sister who formerly had guardianship, was a fiduciary, had been found to be stealing from her mother. Mother was in the nursing home. The sister had the mother co-sign an $8,000 student loan. The mother was had quite advanced dementia. She didn't have the capacity to sign a contract, and $8,000 was blocked. Latoya saved this caregiver $8,000 and probably the rest of her mother's resources, because once there's one exploitation like this, there's so much entitlement, people go back for more. There's Latoya's contact information. Please feel free to call her. We're now working across the state and across the country. So I know we have people in Tennessee and Maine on, and we'd love to help them too. I'll stop there and see, Donna, if we have any questions.
One question that came up on the website, is there any DPOA resources available on there?
Yes, so the durable power of attorney. We don't have a form for you to fill out. they have to be careful on those forms and make sure that it's done properly. But durable power of attorney says, I'm going to appoint you a power of attorney, and the durability is once I become incapacitated, the power of attorney still continues. If I appoint you a power of attorney, say to sign for my mortgage because I'm going to be across the country, once I become incapacitated, you no longer would have that power of attorney. And that's why people have a durable power of attorney. We have resources on the site that talk about that.
Are there any other questions for Dr. Lichtenberg? Peter, could you address the question that was asked earlier during Paula's presentation about signatures on checks?
Yes, signatures on checks. So what you have to decide is does this person still have the ability to manage their finances independently? If not, then it's time to have one of those crucial conversations with them about getting some assistance. And you can do that a lot of ways. You can, if they can't kind of monitor things, but they still understand what the bills are and so forth, you can sit down with them, write out the checks, have them sign that, keep the checkbook though somewhere else. If, however, you're finding that they're so resistant to that, then you may want to try to see if they'd be willing to set up another checking account where you put just a little bit of money in there and not have it be for the bills. Hey, let's separate it. Let's have personal checking and bills checking. And then sometimes you're going to end up deciding that they are no longer able and safe to manage their finances, and you're going to be keeping the checkbook. I don't know too many places that require 2 signatures, so that's hard to actually carry out because they can sign it even if it, quote, a requirement. Many places wouldn't honor that or even know about it and would cash it. So I'd be more careful about that one. It's better to be a power of attorney than to go onto their checking account with them. What would be good is if you could monitor their account and also have the legal rights to access their account. But in Michigan, once you become a fiduciary, you cannot have a joint account with them.
There was one more question. How do you manage their online purchases? Do you have any suggestions for that?
Yeah, definitely. So again, a lot of this starts with these difficult conversations. And you have to kind of find out, what are you concerned about in terms of these purchases? Are they purchasing lots of things that they don't need, which we saw in some of our wallet study participants. They had no idea how much money they were spending online. So one of the things you can do is get access to their accounts and go through it with them and talk, and then kind of talk about how do we protect your money for you. Another thing that you can do is change passwords on the computer so that they really can't log on. With you can, they can't, and that's a more drastic step, obviously. But they might go to the phone and then start, using their credit cards that way. So you have to think about all the ways they might make a purchase and have to deal with those. So that includes credit cards, that includes online access and so forth.
And Crystal was saying that, what about the family that does not, the person does not allow you to help? What are first steps? Do you think it is watching the module about difficult conversations to have, or what's your idea for that?
Yeah, thank you. I'd watch 3 modules: detecting early cognitive impairment, difficult conversations, and financial mismanagement, detection of financial mismanagement, so that you can see what these warning signs might be. And, I've been sort of creating an approach based on motivational interviewing, which is where you partner with the older person, because people with cognitive impairment get so defensive so quickly that you really have to partner with them and try to find the in towards, how can you, most people are ambivalent. They know they need some help. And how do you find that in their conversation with them? So you have to be kind of into it, an equal partnership in terms of conversing. And one good question for people is, what can you tell me about your situation financially that I might not know, to help me understand what's going on?
And one last one. There is one of our participants that is the conservator for her husband and is getting denials from the insurance company and from the healthcare companies. Is there any suggestion of how she can go about pursuing that?
So she's getting denial for his services, not because she's a conservator, but because the insurance company doesn't want to pay for.
Correct.
Yeah. So obviously the first thing is to find out kind of why they're denying it. Was it properly submitted? So I'd be talking with the doctor's office as well. I talk with the insurance company. I talk with the doctor's office. It's not because she's a conservator that they're denying it. There's got to be a different reason. And a lot of times there was something done incorrectly that needs to be redone, whether it was coded wrong by the physician's office or what have you. Other times it's possible that there are services that aren't covered. So you just kind of have to do a little bit of detective work on that.
Perfect. Well, I think that wraps up this session. If you have any other questions, you can go ahead and put them in the chat. I will forward them to Dr. Lichtenberg. And if he has some suggestions for you, make sure to check out the website, olderadultnestaid.com. I will also be sending the slides, so you'll have the information that way. And now we are going to move on to our final speaker of the day. Have you ever felt like you are pouring from an empty cup? Do you have a hard time finding a way to take a break? Do you feel squeezed between caring for your parents and your kids? If any of those ring true for you, you are in the right place. Our speaker today calls herself a recovering caregiver, caring for her mother for 6 years, including hospice care in her home. She is a professional speaker and a wonderful storyteller. In fact, her stories have been broadcast on the Moth Story Hour, and one of her videos went viral in a good way with over 1 million views. She is able to combine stories with creative problem-solving ideas. She has found that good humor is the secret sauce to her success and to yours. She is a certified caregiving consultant and has written an award-winning book called The Caregiver Coffee Break. Our speaker today has been married to the same guy for 36 years, has 3 adult children, all adopted, 2 with special needs. She has worked for the University of Michigan and now dedicates her times and talents to helping caregivers carry on. When she is not presenting her program, she enjoys time on her screened-in porch with her husband, 2 dogs, and 2 ginormous cats. Please give a warm welcome to Brita Miller.
Thank you so much, Donna. It is such an honor to be in this group. And I can't remember the last time I spent a Saturday morning and it just filled my heart and filled my brain with such great concepts and ideas. So thank you very much for including me in this. And I hope that all the participants are feeling it as well. You know, one of the things that I'm noticing as you look at, the Brady Bunch version of all the views is it's so nice to see people's faces. I didn't realize how much I really missed that. So that's wonderful. So what I want to talk about today are touching on similar themes that Paula mentioned and that Peter mentioned. And from my perspective as a recovering family caregiver, I think that I hope it's ideas that you can relate to. So I was my mom's caregiver, and I had no training. I had no background. I didn't know what I didn't know. All I knew was that I love my mom. And every day I would just try to do my best. But some days I just really got it wrong. I was so consumed with doing all the things, being the caregiver, keeping the train running, the medication, the therapies, the doctor's appointments, the personal hygiene, making sure she was eating, making sure she was drinking her water, preventing falls, all those things that sometimes I forgot what was really important. I forgot what really mattered. So my mom, show you a picture of her. She was this delightful little Irish woman, and she did not have Alzheimer's disease. She had congestive heart failure, which led to vascular dementia. So her dementia would come and go. And when she was in the fog, man, it was hard. My mom and dad emigrated from Ireland just before I was born, and they raised a family of 4 boys, 4 sons, and me, their only daughter. So you know that story, right? The default caregiver. Now, my mom, she was not a great cook. She was a good cook, but she was really a good baker. And she could make Irish soda bread and scones with her eyes closed. Her brown bread was legendary, but it was her pie, her apple pie, that was really her claim to fame. And she had these magic fingers, I don't know, she could take a stick of butter and a scoop of flour and just create this delicate, flaky pie crust that was always a mystery to me. And people loved her apple pie. In fact, when she would bake, the neighbors would mysteriously appear at the side door of our little house, just coming in for a visit, just at the right time to get a slice of apple pie, especially Mr. Gillespie. I don't know how he knew, but he did. He had a great sense of smell. Anyway, Mom was really proud of this. And one of the things I remember it was right around the time she became a citizen. And that was a big deal. But she made this big decision that she was going to add cinnamon to her recipe, to her apple pie recipe, to make it an all-American apple pie. It was a big concession on her part. And my mom was always very particular about her tea. She schooled me on the proper way to make a pot of tea. First, you had to have a good rolling boil. None of this microwave water business ever would happen in our house. And you'd need a squatty teapot, and you would pour the boiling water in the teapot, swoosh it around, pour it out before you even made the actual tea. You'd also need to have a nice tea cozy to keep it warm. And she always used to say that a nice china cup just made tea taste better. So I hope you get a sense of who this woman was. That's my director of marketing, by the way. She would find ways to just really help people. And she was the one who would be walking through the neighborhood in her little white Reebok. She was so active. She took yoga classes. So when she started to decline, it was really, really tough. It was sad. It was hard to watch her. And she would find ways to try and do the things that she wanted to do. But one of the things that really was hard to watch was she lost her sense of balance. She developed neuropathy among her other health issues. And she used to be so agile and able, she couldn't even take a walk without gripping for dear life onto her walker. And that meant that she couldn't do many of the things that she was used to doing on her own. She used to say to me, "I'm useless, Eustace." And it was just so sad. The day that she realized that she couldn't even make herself a cup of tea was just heartbreaking. So as she declined, we knew we needed more help, and we were advised to contact Hospice. And I'm going to tell you that I think Hospice saved my life, because as I said, I really had no training. I was just, building the plane as I was flying. And none of my friends talked about being caregivers. And, you know, it's kind of like a big secret, right? You meet with other parents talking about potty training or caring for your young children. But people don't talk about when they're caring for their aging parent and maybe they have to deal with incontinence. You know, nobody says, so how are things going? Are you using Depends yet? No, people don't talk about it. So hospice really helped. They came in, they provided us with a lot of support. And we knew that the time that we had left with mom was really limited. So what we decided to do was maybe we should have a gathering, invite my brothers who lived out of state and their families and come and celebrate mom and not wait for an official holiday, but to make one. And yeah, this seemed like a really good idea. My brothers were really happy about it. They said, yes, that would be great. And we made the plans and we set the date. And, you know, I'm thinking, yeah, well, this is good. I have a big old farmhouse to take care of. I'm taking care of mom. And the thing I didn't realize that not only would I have to take care of mom, I would have to take care of them. I would have to entertain them and feed them and their families. I live in a big old farmhouse. I have 3 teenage children at various stages of immaturity. My husband worked midnights. I have a pesky day job that I was able to work at my home, which was such a mixed blessing because I needed to deal with those responsibilities and care for my mom at the same time. So plan a party, caring for an 85-year-old mom with dementia. What could possibly go wrong, you might ask? What was I thinking? So my brothers were excited. They called mom to say, oh, we're flying up. It's going to be great. And my brother, Donna, says, oh, mom, can't wait to see you. And I can't wait to have a piece of your delicious apple pie. Yeah, things went south from then on. From that moment on, she never stopped. She never stopped asking, when are we making the pie? Are we going to make the pie for the boys? You know, the boys love my apple pie. Apple pie is such a wonderful thing. Are we going to make the apple pie today? Now, I have to tell you, I had a lot on my plate. And I did not inherit my mom's magic fingers when it came to apple pie. I tried. I really tried. But all my attempts, they just didn't end well. I mean, like a gooey gray mass that was sticky and it was very salty, you know, because of the tears. And let's just say my kids know what a conniption looks like. It's not good, not good. So I was just exhausted with all the regular caregiving stuff and trying to get my house in order and figure this all out and you know, get ready for the big day. And I was just losing my mind. I was so stressed because she was relentless. I mean, I would hear that walker come down the hallway and I'm loading stuff in the dish, in the washer. And I hear her say again, is today the day we're making the apple pie? Did you get the apples? Over and over. So I called my brother and I said, what were you thinking? How could you tell mom you wanted her apple pie? She's obsessed with the apple pie. I don't know what I'm going to do. I got so much to take care of. And, you know, I'm not good with the pie. I can't do the pie. And you know what that means? She can't make the pie. I have to make the pie. What am I going to do? And he stops and he says, Brita, don't worry about it. I'll call her. I'll bring a pie. It'll be fine. Don't worry about it. So, you know, that seemed to appease her for a bit after she talked to him. But the day of the big party rolls around and I'm just trying to take care of everything. And she comes out of her room on her walker and she says, are we making the pie today? And at that precise moment, my brother knocks on the door and walks in with a pie in a cardboard box with a plastic cellophane window and the word Kroger on the side, and to add insult to injury, a big orange sticker that says half off. My mother was appalled, and she would not even take one bite of this store-bought pie. And my brother, who's oblivious, you know, to most things, says, oh, but mom, this is delicious. Here, take a bite. It tastes just like yours. Yeah, my mom, she had dementia, but you know, she still knew apple pie. Well, anyway, it was rough, but we managed to change the subject and divert her. We avoided Piegate, and the event ended well, and they all left. So the next day, I'm cleaning up. I am exhausted. I'm packing away her good china, because of course we used it. And she starts asking again, are we making the apple pie? Is today we're making the apple pie? And I don't even know what to say because I'm just over it all. And this went on. And she would ask almost every day, are we making, did you get the apples? You know, the boys love my apple pie. I can't explain to her, she's not getting it, that, you know, that we don't need to do this anymore and we're just moving forward. And I realized that I was the poster child of a stressed out, exhausted, burned out caregiver. And that if I didn't figure out some way to deal with this, I could go before her. And that I was going to need professional help because I just didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to
But
respond.
Dory's sitting there next to her.
So
Get a
I
fucking
found
picture of it.
I found a counselor and made an appointment and went in for the first meeting. And he said, so how can I help you? Well, I let it rip. I just unloaded years of frustration. And I said, I'm just so exhausted. I'm so tired. I'm doing everything. I'm keeping everybody together. It is just so hard. I don't know what to do. And I am so tired of taking care of everybody. And my mom, she just won't let go. She won't stop talking. She's obsessed with making this apple pie. And I'm not good with pie. I don't know how to make pie. I don't even like pie. And I don't know what to do because she keeps talking about it and I'm just over it. And he was such a good listener. He was so kind. And he looked at me and I knew he was going to be supportive, because he was going to say, Brita, you're right. You have to set boundaries. You just can't do everything. But he paused and he put down his pen and his pad of paper. And he said, Brita, you got to make the damn pie. I was speechless. And he said, I know you're busy. You have a lot to do. You've got a lot on your plate, but just pick a date on the calendar, write it down, tell your mom you're going to make the pie, get the ingredients, and then just do it. You won't regret it. So I resigned myself. Okay, fine. I'm going to make the pie. And I got the ingredients. The day came around. I braced myself. I put an apron on me, an apron on mom. She was able to sit at the counter, and we began. And I handed her the little wooden paring knife that had always been her favorite, because you see, my mom did not believe in apple peelers. No. She took this little knife, and she began to peel the apple. Now, she really wasn't able to do it, not much. She made some good efforts there. But I remember that when I was a little girl, she was able to take this knife and peel an apple in one long, unbroken ribbon of apple peel. And it reminded me of how she used to curl my hair when I was a little girl. Those same magic fingers were able to take my hair and make ringlets or banana curls, and then use big bobby pins to set it. And even though she really couldn't do it on this day, the look on her face, she was back there. She was in her glory. So I took the knife and I finished peeling all the apples, and we put them in the bowl with all the spices, and she was able to give it a good stir. And then I had to deal with the pastry, the dreaded pastry. And she did her best to direct me and tell me how to do it. And I had to roll it forward and backward and flip it over and give it a few whacks. And she gave it a whack, and there was flour everywhere. It was all over me. It was all over her. It was on the floor. Some of it was actually on the pastry. But I rolled it out and got it to an acceptable thickness, and then wrestled it into the pie plate. And then we had to arrange the slices of apple. And she was arranging them and telling me how to place them around the pastry, and our fingers touched. And it just reminded me of all the things she had taught me, and how when I was learning Irish step dancing lessons, and she would say to me, now hold your arms loosely at your sides and point your toe, just as she had been taught. And we were transported. So we finished putting the slices of apples, and then I got the pie crust on top and cut around the edge with a little knife. And then she asked me for a few bits of pie dough. She took it and she cut out 3 little leaves, placed it on top of the pie crust, and we put it in the oven. And about an hour or so later, took it out, and it was golden. It was beautiful. We put it on the table. I cut her a small slice. And the look on her face, well, it was just something. She was able to take a few bites and have a sip of her tea in her china cup. And she looked at me and she said, "This is the best pie I've ever made." And you know, I felt so ashamed. How could I have been so oblivious? How did I get so caught up in all the things that I thought were so important that I nearly missed this moment, this opportunity? And so that's what I want to suggest to you, that when we get so caught up in being the caregiver and doing all the things and worrying about all the schedule, Paul, I loved how you said about how you had an idea of what the schedule and what the day should be. And, you know, your mom had an entirely different idea. That is so important. But the point is that if we get so stressed out and exhausted and that we think that's all we can grab onto, we don't have the ability to be flexible, to say, this is something that is not on the schedule. It's not something I'm good at. It's not something I even like myself, but it's so important. It's so important. And so I am so grateful for that. And that's what I want to talk with you about today, about why that is so important. To recognize the reality, right? Recognize the reality of the situation. That these are precious moments. These are precious moments that we have, not every day, and we can't do it every day. But if we can think about opportunities that we can recognize the reality of the person in our care and what matters to them. Clearly, this meant a lot to my mom, and I wasn't listening. I wasn't hearing because I was too tired. I was too concerned with keeping the train running to take the time to do something like this, to understand the consequences. I am so grateful that I got called out before it was too late, because I'll tell you, I was not the perfect caregiver. I did my best, and on any given day, some days were better than others. I remember the time my daughter said to me, "Mom, I think you need to take a nap." Yeah, it was not good. Being snappy or short-tempered is not something I'm proud of, but I know that I just wasn't my best self. And my goal was to be my best self. My goal was to not have regrets. So the day that I was able to take that whole afternoon and make that apple pie is one of the things I'm so grateful for, that I don't have a regret that I didn't do that. So that's really a suggestion for you. So we talk about mindset, and that's really where I'm going here. And I want to share something with you. Have you ever felt like you are, you've heard of the term the sandwich generation? I'm sure that you have, because we're living it, right? How's this for a visual? Have you ever felt like you're in the caregiver sandwich, that you're being squeezed, on both sides by a generation? Maybe you're caring for your mom or your dad or your husband, your wife, and the other side might be your kids, the club sandwich is your grandkids. I don't even want to go there, too many carbs. uh, or maybe a demanding job, something like that, and you're just squeezed. Well, here's the thing to remember about being in the caregiver generation, the sandwich generation. The essence of the sandwich is the filling, right? I mean, have you ever ordered a rye bread sandwich? Or, I'd like a whole wheat sandwich there today. No. You'll get a BLT maybe, or a grilled cheese sandwich, or a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. But if you don't take care of the filling, if you lose the filling, all you've got is toast. So it's really important. You are the filling in the caregiver sandwich, and you are the essence. And if you're not taking care of yourself, it's not going to be good. So, oh, that's nice. Not a whole lot of sandwich head today. Sandwich hair, always have to worry about that. The goal is, I'm going to get to this. Why does it matter with your mindset? Fixable versus manageable, really an important thing to think about. Not everything is fixable. Alzheimer's disease is not fixable. There is no cure. So maybe you have to find ways to manage it and think about what is the goal. My goal every day was just to say, we had a good day and the bar was low. Maybe it's that mom drank all the water that she needed to drink on that day, and boy, that was a good day. Or maybe I only had to change the bedding twice. Yay, that was a good day. The other thing is to let it go. Think about your standards. I just made the decision that I was going to have plenty of time to clean the baseboards in my house after I was no longer caring for my mom. That was 10 years ago. I'm not sure if I've ever gotten around to cleaning the baseboards. Are you supposed to do that? Anyway, lower your standards. I mean, let it go. Think about what really matters. And it was because I made that choice, made that decision to let a few things go, that I scheduled that whole day of making an apple pie. So think about that and how that might work for you. So here is something that I want to share with you that's really helped me, and this is creative mind games. Two things that I want to suggest to you. Number one, this is my hero. This is who I keep with me at all times on my desk here. This is Gumby, if you can see him. He's going to wave to you. The philosophy about Gumby is, blessed are the flexible, for they shall not get bent out of shape. So when things happen, things come up. Well, that's not on the schedule. I wasn't planning to do that. What do you mean you can't do? Be like Gumby, find a way to make it work. And if you can do it with a smile, if you can find a way to not get bent out of shape, you're going to be better off. And the person in your care is going to feel less stressed, less like a burden, and you're going to feel better about it. So here's the other one, and this is probably my favorite: mental bingo. Mental bingo has saved my life on so many times. So you know how, and maybe it's just me, people say things over and over again and they get on my nerves, or they do things over and over again and they're going to do it and it gets under your skin and you think, if she says that one more time, I'm just going to go crazy. Or I can't believe he's doing that. I can't believe he keeps, changing the channel, or whatever it might be. Okay. So in your head, and this is really important that it stays mental, because I never want you to be subpoenaed. I want no evidence of this. So this is not to be written down, not to be in a computer, nothing, in your head. So a mental bingo card, and across the top, instead of the BINGO, substitute the person's name, because you could use this for multiple people in your lives, not just necessarily the person in your care. It could be your sister, who's making judgy comments, or just little digs or things that are bugging you. Or it could be your spouse who is, I've just heard rumors of people not being cooperative or helpful. I would have no personal experience with that. But anyway, whatever it might be. And then in the boxes, don't have numbers, have the behavior or the thing that they say or do. So my example was, my mom had this little dog, a Yorkshire Terrierist, right? His name was Toby. She loved this dog. He was 5 pounds of high personality dog. She used to sing a little song to this dog. It was not cute. It was not charming. It was not a good song, and my mom did not have a good voice. And she insisted on singing the song all the time, especially when people would come over. It drove me nuts. It irritated me. And I would say, oh, she's going to sing that song again, and it's going to bug me. And I flipped it around. I gave the Toby song a square on my mental bingo card. And then what would happen is people would come over and she would say, he has a song. Would you like to hear his song? And instead of me seething inside, I would say, that only took 2 minutes. And she sang the song pretty good. And I would check it off. The thing is, once you've checked it off 5 times, you get to say bingo. It's oddly satisfying. I don't know why. But I've presented this program to groups and people have sent me messages and then has said, Brita, I've said bingo 5 times. It's only 11 a.m. But you can't control their behavior. You can control how you respond. And if you can find a way that is slightly amusing or slightly entertaining, it's just going to make it easier because it's still going to happen. And it's just about finding a way to manage your situation. So I just have a couple of things that I want to share with you. Another one is micro breaks, right? People say, oh, Brita, yeah, it's fine to, yeah. One of my favorite things to say is to take a break before you break, to be proactive. Yeah, well, that's good for you. I can't leave the house. I can't leave my person. I can't leave mom alone. How can I go? I can't take a break. I'm too tired to take a break. Here it is. Think of 1 or 2 things every day that you can look forward to and consider it a micro break. So maybe it is your cup of tea or your cup of coffee. Find a spot, find a comfy chair, find a porch, find a place in the basement. I don't know, some place that you can go and be mindful about how you enjoy that nice warm beverage or cold iced tea, whatever it might be. Think about that. Then maybe another one might be a 10-minute break in the afternoon, maybe 3 o'clock. My mom used to, when I was little and she was raising 5 kids, she watched her soap opera. And you know, people, I don't think people do that anymore. I don't know if they're even still on. But she would sit down, put her feet up, and she would take a break for half an hour and watch As the World Turns. And I realized how smart she was. That as caregivers, we need to give ourselves permission to take that break. I don't know what it looks like for you. It might be watching a television program, reading a book, going for a walk around your yard. If you can't leave, you know, for a 10 or 15-minute walk, but whatever it is meaningful to you, plan for it. So maybe start your day with a break before things get going, get up a little bit early and enjoy that moment, or later in the day. Find something that is meaningful to you. So I'm watching my time here. I have so many cool ideas that I want to share with you, but I just want to end on this note, and that is about the apple pie story and about no regrets. The thing is this, it was never about the pie. It was about making the pie. And I am just so grateful that I was called out before it was too late. And I got the greatest gift that day that to this day I think about. And that was for that one afternoon, I could stop being Brita, the caregiver. And I could become Brita, Mary Kelly's daughter. And so it was a gift to my mom, but more importantly, it was a gift to myself. And so think about, is there someone in your life that has something that they love? Maybe it's making the sauce. Maybe it is fixing, doing a stitch or something that this person that you're caring for loved to do and was their claim to fame. Is there a way that you can find the time to do that with them? And maybe, like in my case, you're doing it all, but they're giving it a stir, or they're watching, or they're wearing an apron and they're feeling a part of it. Because I'm telling you, it is one of the greatest gifts that you can give yourself. So if my parting words to you are, one of the most important things that I learned about being a caregiver is to take a break before you break. So that the idea is to not, when your caregiving days are over, it's not about what's left of you, but it's about finding the best of you and still having it there. if anybody has any questions in the chat, I'm happy to respond to them. If you have any suggestions or ideas or your favorite way to take a break, that might be another interesting idea. Donna, are there any things in the chat that we can take a look at?
Just a lot of comments on how you were inspirational. Laughter and wisdom, lots of good things. So you'll have to read through the chat, lots of good positive comments. And this was a wonderful way to end the conference. I'm going to turn it over to my partner who helped me develop this conference, Cheryl Deep, and she's going to end the conference for us.
Thank you so much, Donna. I have the pleasure of working with Donna and Dr. Lichtenberg at the Institute of Gerontology. About a week ago, Donna asked me if I'd prepare remarks for the close of this conference, and she wanted something inspirational, although it's really hard to follow Brita because she's pretty inspirational too. I would have turned her down if I'd known I was coming after Brita. I thought a lot about it. And I thought maybe a poem or an uplifting quote, inspirational, what inspires? And then I realized that it's you. You are the inspiration. Your stories motivate, uplift, and inspire. I've been where you are, and I know some of what is given when you give care. Daily, weekly, monthly, you're making doctor's appointments, you're giving baths, you're preparing meals, you're taking blood pressure, you're combing hair, you're holding hands, serenading, smiling to brighten a day or to relieve some pain and fear. You're checking the fridge for expired foods. You're making sure the milk hasn't been put in the pantry by mistake. You're giving a shoulder massage, administering medications, and you're loading and unloading that heavy wheelchair from the trunk of the car. You're making photo albums to help trigger Dad's happiest memories. You're listening at the bedroom door to make sure Mom's really asleep. You're waking in the middle of the night to a cough or footsteps. And you're up early, so the morning meds can be taken with a hearty breakfast. You are there. Whenever, whatever is needed, you are there. You give your time, your energy, your strength, your patience to make sure the one you love is comfortable and happy. And you do it all not because someone is forcing you to or paying you to, but out of love and a deep gratitude to those who loved and cared for you. You inspire me. You inspire each of our speakers here today, and I hope you inspire each other. We have about 100 caregivers on this conference call, and that's 100 people right here who understand and appreciate what you do. You are not alone. St. Augustine said, "Love and say it with your life." The caring way you live is the very definition of love. And an inspiration to all of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Cheryl. That was beautiful. And with that, I am going to close out this conference. I want to thank everyone for attending. And our goal was that you took home some strategies, some strength through this conference to make your caregiver journey one that is memorable and more enjoyable and takes part in the quality care that you want to give your loved one. I will be sending the slides out through email. If you have any questions, you all have my email at donnamcdonald@wayne.edu. And we will see you at future events. Take care. Bye-bye. Someone asked if it's being recorded. It is being recorded, and we will be putting it on our website at iog.wayne.edu. And it will also be on Peter's older adult nest egg website as well. So